Well, I must first of all go back to when I didn't know Harold, which was California in the 1960s. And if you know anything about his history, our history, you're going to know that it's pop art, it's abstract expressionism, it's wild. Well, Harold decided to try all of that. And how I know is because the last thing we pulled out of our attic was a crate with over 500 drawings, all in this venue, and I think they're terrific. He had a live model, so he was doing that. He had a lot of still lifes maybe set up or in his mind. In fact, he had a show over here at Hanger Art Gallery this summer that showed those. So anyway, he decides that he needs to move on from his California position, which was more of an administrative position. He was the head of the art department at Chapman University. And he says, I'm a teacher, not an administrator. And so Ken Holder told him about ISU and how they were building this art department and they needed someone with a doctorate like he had.
And at the time, it was the heyday of abstract expressionism, and I certainly had a dose of that. But by the time in 1960, when I graduated from Ohio State, that the abstract expressionism was out. And so we were all, the artists I knew in California and everything, were looking for another path. And what I decided is that I really wanted to go back, and so I went back and did the kind of Winslow Homer thing of sitting by the ocean in California and painting with an easel and doing all of that. And that's what began to make me think about landscape as a major subject. And the more I knew about it, the more I became engaged. And for several reasons and stuff, after, well, by 1970 in California, that was about 10 years, that I had scheduled a big show in La Cienega, which was a major thing, and the gallery went belly up, and I was the head of a department at Chapman University, and I realized I just was not ahead of, I'm just not good at that, and the job offer came from Illinois State University. They needed a person to teach painting, and the more I thought about that, I applied for it and did get the job, and that's why I'm here.
It was miraculous. It was. It was just incredible. And it wasn't just the art department. It was the university. They were just pulling them in like this. And you didn't really know that when you got here, but you did find out what was really happening. You couldn't have been here for a couple of months without knowing this is going to get big. And it was. And it was. And it was in every discipline across. And so, and on with, there had to be some that were real. Probably a lot of people came in very young, and a lot of people came in very seasoned. Because I would imagine that they wanted both, and so on. But boy, there was a lot of young people there. And so, and when, for the art, School of Art, got in the hands of, who was your first person who was ahead of the department?
Oh, Fred Mills.
Fred came in and changed everything in the art, 100%. He had his first announced whole family, everybody who had been hired. His first meeting when he met with them, he said, we were looking over the building. And the building was insanely designed. It was just crazy as hell. And he stood up before that entire big room full of new people, with a few others that were going to be staying there too. And he said, "See this?" And he held up the architects of the studios and all of it. And it was just bananas. And he held that up and he said, "This is not it. You were hired for specific reasons, and we're going to build what those are. And all you have to do is come to me and tell me who you are and what you have to have, and you've got it." And he did it, just as literally as that. Took a little while to get it done, but he did it.
Yeah, that was, Ken worked really hard. I mean, there was a time in his career that he would take photographs of his paintings and apply to be in a show, like Springfield, Missouri watercolor. That was a prestige show to be in. There was a biennial watercolor show. He and that and other shows around Illinois, Texas, maybe even Wisconsin. Always trying to get a gallery in New York. Always trying to, get a gallery in New York that would accept you and take you on as an artist. But with Chicago, there was one other gallery in Chicago that I can't remember that he was a part of, and he got out of it really quickly because it wasn't, the woman who owned the gallery had her own ideas, and Ken didn't fit in with what she wanted, and he wasn't going to change or anything. He did what he did. And but then Roberta Lieberman and Bob Zola invested in him, and he had so many shows there that were absolutely so much fun, and it was always really excited if one of his paintings would sell. You understand that, that it was rare, but seems like his paintings didn't sell all that quickly. They were challenging probably to look at.
So he comes here from California, and he gets out of the airplane and he sees the land and he thinks it's inspiring and beautiful. So many people said, "Oh, it's flat, uninteresting." He says, "No, you feel the vitality here. You see the undulations that are low and slow. You see the tree lines. You see so many patterns in the land, and it just glows." He felt the soul of the land, and he would talk about that, about its metaphor. And so he began to paint, believe it or not, the corn cribs, because he thought they were little sentinels of the prairie. What was interesting, he got a contact with New York in a gallery that was interested to show his corn cribs. What set the art people on their ears was that the whole show sold out before the door even opened. Now that was a revelation and an unusual event. He never had that happen again, but it was wonderful to see.
And I've never regretted that when I flew in and looked at the landscape below, it was something I'd really not ever noticed or paid attention to before. And I began to really think about landscape painting, got a studio almost immediately with the help of Ken Holder, who's also exhibited here, and got a studio in downtown Bloomington on the Front Street, and it was an old ballroom, and gave me a lot of space to do stuff, and so I did, and made large paintings and large landscape paintings, and the first thing I really attracted, I thought that I didn't really know quite what to do, and I thought the corniest and the dumbest thing I could probably do would be corn cribs. I had not seen them, I didn't know what they were. I thought they were barns until somebody finally told me, those are not barns, they're corn cribs. And, but I did corn cribs for about, maybe a year, and along with landscapes, these were big landscapes. And a New York gallery reached me, and that gallery was the O.K. Harris Gallery in New York. And I was told that I entered a show. The juror of the show told Ivan Karp, who was the director of the O.K. Harris Gallery, to quote, kind of get on me. And so I heard from them, and they said, come out, send your paintings, and we'll look at your art. I did, they did, and I got into the O.K. Harris Gallery in 1971. And that was right in the first wave photorealism. And I could do photorealism because that was my training way back, but at the time you're almost ashamed of it because realism was seen as being like the poor. It was always be around, something everybody could do, but it really wasn't quite true. And anyway, that Ivan Karp took me on, and I became part of the 100 Acres Gallery, which was his across the street small gallery for smaller works. By maybe 3 or 4 years, I did very well. I sold a lot, and things began to happen, and did some travel and met a whole lot of artists, which is all part of what one has to have happen when you're in the arts, and got to know a lot of people. And so I was then taken on by the Tibor de Nagy Gallery. That's Tibor de Nagy, N-A-G-Y, which was a very prominent gallery, and that was really a big deal. And I showed with them for the next 17 years. And there was a Mr. Tibor de Nagy, and he was a Hungarian immigrant and very understanding and interesting person. He died 17 years later, and he died, and the gallery changed hands, and they now show a lot of very different artists, and everyone who was with the gallery when Tibor died are no longer with the gallery, so that all changed. And since then, I went with a couple other New York galleries, and I'm now with the ACA Gallery in New York, the American Contemporary Art Gallery in downtown New York. But also, I showed in Chicago, and that's something when I came here, I realized that Chicago seemed to be the destination of everyone trying to get a gallery, and that was 1970. And but I first got a New York gallery, and then Chicago came to me, and I asked would I show with them, and so I did, and that was with Nancy Lurie, and Nancy Lurie is also now passed, but she was very, very helpful in establishing me in Chicago, and so when she died, which was 1988, that she made sure that the artists she was showing, that they all had a gallery to go to. And the gallery that I went with at her behest was the Richard Gray Gallery. And I've been showing with Richard Gray ever since, and I'm still showing with Richard Gray, which is probably the top gallery in Chicago. And it's now on the 38th floor of the Hancock Tower. and so I've been represented in Chicago and in New York for a very long time. And that's a mark in an artist's favor to have that kind of representation. But with two galleries, a third gallery came into view, and that was the Santa Fe. And Santa Fe has the Gerald Peters Gallery, which is probably the biggest gallery in Santa Fe. If one is out there, I hope you would take a visit and enjoy the collection he has. It's big. He has perhaps 4 or 5 shows going at once of different things. I say it's a very big space. Plus they have parking, which is amazing in Santa Fe. And so he's done very well. I've shown with him now for probably 15 years. And so it took the 3 of them, of New York and Chicago and Santa Fe, I've been able to establish myself as an artist.